Some things look a little like one irons and a little bladey and a little tough to play. So getting it wider, the sight line's longer, a little more forgiving. And my pat on the back is when I turn on the TV on Sunday and we have win after win after win.
Do you have any idea what the rarest Scotty Cameron putter is out there on the market in the world and what it might be worth in terms of value?
Hello and welcome to the Gear of the Week show. In this episode, we've got a fantastic interview with the one and only Scotty Cameron. He's going to introduce you to his latest range of putters coming out later this year. And we're going to find out what putter he actually uses, what putter he has in the bag. Stick around for that. But before we get stuck into the interview, I'll say hello to our two guests today, Sam Diath, Neil Tappin. Sam, welcome back to the Gear of the Week show. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Hi, Dan. Hi, Tappers. Hope you're well.
Hello, just jump in and say hi.
Just jump in and say hi. Hello. Before we get stuck into this, Tappers, we've got to have a quiz question first. It is Gear of the Week tradition. You were slaving over this one, I saw, so I'm excited to see what it is. Sam is currently 0 for 1 on Gear of the Week, and I've lost track of how bad I've been. So let's find out what we've got today.
Small peek behind the curtain would be that I failed to prepare a question, so I had to quickly try around find something before we started. But I've got something that I think you can both get the answer to, and it's Scotty Cameron related. Okay, so obviously Scotty Cameron has produced putters that have been used to win many of the game's big major titles.
Yes,
Tiger Woods being one of them, but which male player is the last player to use a Scotty Cameron to win a major?
Good question, Neil Tappin. I'll think out loud for this. Oh, Sam's got it.
There's a certain degree of confidence behind that smile, I see.
Let me think out loud, because if I thought silently, it wouldn't make much of a show. I immediately went to Adam Scott, but that was now 10 years ago. So that's a ridiculous statement. Just because I remember that putter head he had when he won the Masters. I think I've got it as well, and I'll be disappointed if it isn't this. Because Sam's so confident, I'll say what I think first. I think it was Scotty Scheffler.
Dan's gone Scotty for Scotty.
Scotty for Scotty.
Yeah.
Sam, am I right?
Yeah, so well, if I can remember correctly, the Open was the last major championship, and so it was Cameron Smith.
I'm enjoying this, Dan. I'm really enjoying how you sort of close with no cigar every single time.
I didn't even think. Sam's thought, right, what was the last Open? What was the last major? Who won it? If I'd done that and actually sat down and thought about it.
Scotty Scheffler wasn't even the second. You had Justin Thomas between Cameron Smith and Scotty Scheffler.
I didn't even hit the post. I missed the target entirely then.
Yeah, but you can redeem yourself, though. I'm going to throw in a very quick bonus question. Who knows which male player was the first major winner to use a Scotty Cameron putter?
If it was before I was born, no chance. I didn't tune into golf till I was about 10, so it's taken most of my life out of it.
Yeah, I'm struggling on that one. Have we got any clues to era?
93. I'll tell you, 1993 Masters. Who won that?
Oh, God. Again, was that the year before I was born?
Was that Sir Nick Faldo?
No. No, but to be fair, is so poor. Bernard Langer.
Oh, okay. So European man.
Nil point for this episode, Dan.
And you keep giving me questions and I keep getting it wrong. That's the annoying thing. I do like that putter Cam Smith uses. I don't know the exact model, but I like how it's black shaft, black head. I think black grip. It looks really cool, and he obviously putted really well with it. Yeah. Good question, Neil. And my run continues. Well done, Sam. Though on the board. Good for you. I'll keep a little. We'll keep a little lead going with people will get on across this year. Okay, without any further ado, I think it's time we head to the interview with Scotty Cameron. This took place just before Christmas last year, and he's going to firstly chat about the latest range of putters that came out today. Will be available a little bit later in March, as well as some stuff about what putter he carries, his most proud product, and what he's looking to try and do in 2023 and beyond. So enjoy, and we'll be back just after the interview.
Right, Mr. Scotty Cameron, thank you so much for joining us here on the Gear of the Week show. It's an absolute pleasure. And I think, first of all, we should really get talking about your new putter range. It's very exciting. The Super Select. Can you just just talk to us a bit about where the design philosophy came from, and how does it move on the performance versus what we saw in the special select?
So thanks for having me on the show. The Newport 2 in this line has been a home run product, but when it came time, sitting down, how do we do this better? How do we change this? How do we make it more forgiving? The goal was to lose 10 grams and put that into places we want to use it most, like the heel and toe, underneath. So we now on the new product have I-beams on the front and the back, removing weight from the neck and from the back pocket. So those bombs, we call them bombs in the back. There's no paint fill, but we've made those deeper, but we've kept the bomb shapes. So we have ribs in the middle of those bombs for sound and feel. Now we have tungsten weights in the heel and toe weights in the blades. But when it comes to the mallets, we have a wider body back to be able to get the weight lower and back into the wider. But the key, I think one of the keys, the square back has been great on tour, great in sales. It's a wide body Newport 2. But I have had a few guys and girls from the Quarter Sisters saying, hey, can we make that a little skinnier, almost a tweener in between a Newport and a Newport 2 and a square back. So we have the Newport 2 Plus and the Newport Plus, which is the same thing, but in order to do that, it would get too heavy to make it wider. So I put 6061 aircraft aluminum in a sole plate that I could make that wider. So it's kind of, I think in time, some things look a little like one irons and a little bladey and a little tough to play. So getting it wider, the sight line's longer, a little more forgiving, a little wider sole, so it sits a little better. So yeah, the whole goal was how do we do this better? Not to change, but change to make it better.
And so, in terms of making it better, what kind of tangible improvements will golfers really notice in this line versus previous lines?
Sure. Couple things. We can adjust the milling of the face for sound, which is feel, and we've done so. So we went to a softer mill. We used to have a deep mill, and now we found that we wanted to go right in between. So basically, it's a deep mill where we have a dual pass, where we knock off the high spots of the milling, as you can see in some of the photos, how clean that is. So it's a deep mill, but it's not as deep because we knock off the top of the mountains.
So those plus shapes, are they kind of almost reacting to trends? I've certainly seen a lot of brands releasing kind of slightly fatter blades. Is that something that golfers are asking for? Something with a bit more substance to it, but in that blade shape?
Yes, I think a lot of guys, for example, on tour, let's go back 7 years ago, we had blades that were, and when we talk blades, Newport 2 styles, which were 75% of our tour usage. Now mallets are 50%. So it's 50-50 blades and mallets. So is it a tweener mallet? Is it in between a mallet and a blade? Kind of. Does it perform like a blade? Yes. Does it perform like a mallet? Kind of. So it's right in between the two. And yes, touring pros, and I had some things in the works and handed them to the Quarter Sisters when they were here, Jessica and Nelly, and it was just it's exactly what they were looking for, and we are just tinkering on it. Then we brought it out a little bit to the tour and gave it to some of our loyal Cameron guys. Ricky Fowler put it right in play. So prior to the release of this, we've already done our homework on the PJ Tour and the different tours, and we know we have a home run in this Newport 2 and Newport Plus.
You've been doing this an awfully long time, right? Where does the motivation come from, like today, to keep going after all these years of success, all these great putters you've produced? Where do you find the drive to keep doing what you're doing?
I've always told myself when I wake up on Monday and don't want to go to work, it's time to start thinking about slowing down. The issue is when I wake up on Monday, I'm charged to do things like a better grip. We have a new grip on here. How do we make products better? And my pat on the back is when I turn on the TV on Sunday and we have win after win after win. For example, this year we have won 40% of all PGA Tour events. That's the pat on the back. that keeps me motivated to do better. And I think with materials and design, staying in that USGA, never crossing the line, but trying to take it to the extreme. I'm always thinking of materials and how can I do it better? How can I get it more forgiving? And how can I hand it to a guy when I'm at the Sony in a couple weeks and his eyes light up like, I've been thinking about this, but um, thanks for making it. So the pat on the back keeps me going on Monday and motivated, but there's so much new stuff that we can do. My issue, by the time I'm done, whenever that is, I want to get some of these thoughts out of my head and in design and get these things into the market. So I don't think we're going to be a shortage of ideas and designs. It's just bringing those things to the market at the proper time with a proper product.
And you mentioned you're always thinking about designs, but also you're obviously in constant conversation with tour pros. I mean, how much of your shapes or your designs that you come up with comes from the tour or comes from your own head, basically?
We get a lot of touring pros in here, and I'm able, and whether they're a Titleist or wide open, or they come in here, they let their hair down, and we just talk about what have they seen, what do they like, what would they like in the future, why don't you like this? But I'm able to hand them a grip and just tell me about the grip. So I'm a big believer in grips matching heads, bends and shafts for mallets matching heads, things making sense. But in the studio, most come through here during the year 1 to 3 times. And I have ideas. I'm not sure. Some are kind of crazy, but I check with them and get their input, and I can soften it down. I can pick it up. But yeah, it's never for a lack of ideas. But the studio has been my think tank to be able to have the guys come in and ask their thoughts and opinions.
And you talked about some crazy ideas. We see tour players with Scotty Cameron putters that are slight variations on what we see at retail. You must have had some pretty crazy requests down the years from tour players. Are there any that come to mind that really stand out as the most crazy request you've ever had?
I have. One happened like 25 years ago, and this came up recently. Guys like to putt with their wedges on the green to get some feel and get some movement. And I was asked to put a putter face on a wedge and weld that to and have the proper loft. And, we have the best wedge maker in the world with Bob Vokey. I said, if you're talking wedges, go see Bob. If we're talking putters, come see me. So I turned that one down 25 years ago, and I turned that one down last week.
Wow, last week someone asked you for that.
Yeah.
That's great. I'd love to see it. That sounds like a pretty crazy product.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it because it's a wedge.
And we know Scotty Cameron putters hold their value pretty well, and you do a lot of limited edition runs as well, of certain models. Do you have any idea what the rarest Scotty Cameron putter is out there on the market in the world and what it might be worth in terms of value?
Yes. I did a Golf Channel interview a few years back. A lot of players were in the same deal, and they asked about Tiger Woods' putter with the vertical Scotty Cameron and the Cherry Bomb. And in that little deal, players like a Mark O'Meara, I remember, and guys were talking about it. And there are a few guys that rated that putter, meaning, what do you think it's worth? And then I heard from some auction houses talking about there's never been a jockey to have a saddle or a baseball bat or a golf club that has won things like Tiger has with that putter. So guys were talking about that putter could be worth somewhere between 50 and $100 million.
Wow.
How do you put a price on that? And I think when they came to Tiger asking him, he says, priceless.
That's incredible. Imagine getting hold of that. That would be amazing. And obviously, I'm sure this is a question you get asked an awful lot, but I don't know whether you tinker with your own putter or change them out a lot. But what putter are you currently using right now?
I'm using a new Phantom X11. I like mallets as they set a little more square. They look a little more forgiving. Sometimes, and I'm a big fan of blades, like old flangey blades without pockets, our old California series and Circa 62 we have done. I have a gallery here in Encinitas, California, and one in Japan, Hamamatsu, Japan, and there are still great golfers wanting those blades. So I'm always having three putters in. I love my blades, I love my mallets, and I love in between, and always trying to look at it to understand, do I like the finish? Do I like the color? Do I like the sound? Do I like the feel? And I'm a thinker and a tinker, and I'll come back the next day, mess around with it. But there's nothing really set in my bag because I like to try and experience everything when it comes to putters.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Scotty, for joining the Gear of the Week show. A lot of insights there. And if you want to listen to the whole interview, it's about 25 minutes long. You can listen to the podcast edition of the Gear of the Week show, where you'll get a little bit more insight from the man himself. Right, this might sound really strange, chaps, but Scotty Cameron is such a well-known brand and a well-known design that I almost forget he's an actual person. Do you know what I mean? You see what I'm going for? That you hear Scotty Cameron, you're like, yeah, that's a putter model.
It's
I know, wait,
exactly. Yeah,
exactly. So I think we forget it because the word Vokey and the word Scotty Cameron have become such iconic franchise.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. You forget there's a man behind all of that. And it was great to hear some of insights there. Tappers, I believe you've met him, haven't you, in years gone by? What's he like? He seems like a really nice chap, and obviously really knows what he's doing.
He's a fascinating character, actually. So a few years ago, we went over to, so myself and a few others, Mike Harris, a few others from Golf Monthly, went over to California to the Titleist headquarters. And as part of that trip, we spent a day or a morning with Scotty in his workshop. And then we went to the gallery, which is his shop in a place called Encinitas, which is just outside Carlsbad in California. And it was just a fascinating bit of time to spend with somebody who he's an icon of the game, but you forget that he's also got a real following of people. His bespoke creations are highly sought after, and people love the craftsmanship. And I think that the time that I spent with him made me really understand why people have fallen in love with what Scotty's created over the years, because everything he does, everything that's in his world he creates has got a little story behind it. It's amazing. So, for instance, a good example of that is, you know, with sometimes the way that Cameron is written on the back of the putter, or Scotty Cameron, it's kind of like the logo kind of dances up and down. And that's because when he was stamping the putters originally, he could never really get them to line up. So it's like almost embracing the fact that he couldn't get them to line up. And then if you buy a Scotty Cameron putter, I think it comes in the box it comes in, you've got the Scotty Cameron logo that's kind of dancing around a little bit up and down. Things like, you'll probably be familiar with the circle T stamp that you get on some of the putters. Well, that was originally came about for a kind of a logistical reason, that they were trying to get certain tour only models out to the tour. So they were stamping them with this kind of, it's like almost like a branding iron stamp, a T with a circle around it, so that everyone knew this was tour only. But of course, that became popular in its own right. And to have a putter with that stamp on it was like, well, that's cool. I want one of those. And that's kind of what makes Scotty so good, so different. It's that he is creating stuff that not only is going to help people perform as well as they possibly can on the greens, but these are the most desirable items that you can imagine. And they're so desirable because you've got somebody who's leading the way, who's totally thinking outside the box all the time, trying to come up with things that he thinks are cool. And what you realize is that when I spent time with him, he's just got a real eye for this stuff. He really knows what's cool before it's cool. I mean, it's easy for me to say that. I don't know when anything's cool. It just looks great to me. But he's got a real knack for this, for sure.
I think if he makes it, it is cool, sort of thing. I love Joel asked him sort of, you know, you've been doing this for so long now, what keeps you going, you know? And he says, listen, the day I don't wake up and I'm excited for work, I'll know to call it a day. So he's still obviously so excited about innovating with putters and what he's doing with his latest range, and still talking about putters from bygone eras that people are probably still using and still respect so much, and that still hold a heck of a lot of value, by the way, as he spoke about in the interview. Sam, he spoke about actually the Futura putter. Do you remember that big old mallet, that big old thing?
Yep.
I think Adam Scott, maybe that's why I thought of it at the start of the episode, I think I managed to pick one up a few years ago. I've since got rid of it because I wasn't very good with it. Have you ever had a Scotty Cameron putter yourself, Sam?
I have. I've been through my fair share of putters, as I've spoken to you guys about before. I am very keen to try different things, especially when putting, and it's never me, it's always the putter when I'm having a bad putting day. So you know, got to switch it out, change up what's in the bag. And yeah, so actually at the moment I've reverted back to my putter that I've had for about 12 or 13 years now. So I'm using a Scotty Cameron Go Low in the black finish, and yeah, that's a putter that is kind of been my trusty go-to. Always kind of gone back to it when I'm having a bad spell on the greens.
They should change it from Go Low to Go To then, perhaps, or maybe you could do that. You could put your own little stamp on there. I like
there we go. I'm not sure Scotty would be too proud if I
never don't touch his design. Tappers, I'm sure you've been through a few Scotty Cameron putters in your time. Is there a model that stands out for you that either you've had or reviewed in the past, or one that you just think that's just iconic?
Do you know what I would say is that I'm never surprised when he does something that surprises me. That sounds it's a complete contradiction. Makes no sense whatsoever.
Makes sense of that, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense of that. But it's true that so I couldn't believe it when I saw the Phantom putters and that kind of fluorescent color scheme that they had on an otherwise classic looking head. And I remember seeing the images on screen before seeing the putter for real and thinking, I'm not sure this is right.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, you pick it up, you see it in the flesh, and you go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes more sense now. It looks really cool. It's just got that flash of color. And so so I used one of those for quite a while and really loved that putter, really loved the way it felt. So yeah, I've used a few over the years, a bit like you, Sam, always looking for, you know, every 3 putt leaves a scar, shall we say. And
absolutely.
There's no shortage of scars.
Always looking for the secret.
It's interesting you said you gone back to one, Sam. Justin Thomas has gone back to his old trusty one this year, hasn't he? The little blade. I can't remember the name of it exactly, but it's a lot of people have one maybe stuck away in the garage somewhere that it can always go back to. Brilliant, chaps. And as I said, the new Super Select range is out in 2 different launches this year. So the first set of heads come out on March 17th, the next on May the 19th. Go and check them out for yourself in your local store. Go and get fitted for one. We'll have our review soon.
Can I just do one last shout out, Dan? For anyone who is in the Southern California area, any golfers that find themselves in Southern California, think about putting in a stop in a little town called Encinitas, which is where the Scotty Cameron, it's called the Gallery, where Scotty's shop is. And you can get lots of little bespoke, lots of different head covers that you wouldn't find elsewhere. It's a head cover. Sort of treasure trove for any golf fan. You could. We spent ages in there.
I bet.
We were with Scotty in there. We were in one of the back rooms, and we were doing some putter fitting, I think, in one of the rooms. And then he came out onto the shop floor. I don't think anyone can believe, oh, here's Scotty in his stuff. But yeah, anyone who finds themselves in that area, think about making a stop off at the Scotty Cameron Gallery. It is, you know, as a place to pick up collector's items. It's very cool.
Shout out to Scotty Cameron head covers as well. Some of those rarer ones. I think Rick Shield did a video on it maybe 2 or 3 a while ago now, but a sort of a really rare selection. Some of those head covers are awesome. That sounds really cool, Tappers. Can't believe you just walked out like that. Was it like if you touch the putters in a certain combination, he just appears, you know, just appears out of there? That's what happened. That was really cool. So yeah, we'll have our full reviews rather of those putters later this year as well. So be sure to check those out. But for now, that about wrap up this episode. As I said, if you want to listen to the full interview, you can find that on your podcast app, wherever you get your podcasts. Neil, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your insights today.
Thanks, Dan. Cheers.
Thank you, Sam. Well done. First question right. One of many, I'm sure. Thank you for joining us.
Cheers, Dan. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for listening and watching. We'll be back next week.